Hi guys, today we're looking at the IBM Model M keyboard. This one you can see is branded Lexmark, while this one is actually a Unicomp with the gray keys and the FXT keycaps I swapped on from my FXT, but we'll get to that later. But the Lexmark and Unicomp names are both important parts of the story. The Model M was released in 1985 and was the keyboard responsible for this 101 key layout here. There were millions of these things made, and there were like so many different versions of them as well. And all of these Model M's were made in the UK, or in Mexico, or in the USA. In the early 90s, Lexmark was formed in a buyout from IBM, still based in USA, and they kept making keyboards for IBM into the late 90s. You know, most of these were branded IBM, but Lexmark did produce some of their own branded ones like this, and they also made some other OEM brands like Dell, for example, which, yes, it's crazy to think you could get a Dell Model M. But then in the late 90s, the Model M was getting too expensive to make, so Lexmark stopped production, and so employees from Lexmark formed Unicomp and bought all the rights and tooling to keep producing these keyboards, and they still have to this day. It's funny to think, as of 2025, Unicomp's been around longer than, like, I want to think Lexmark and IBM combined, so big props to Unicomp for keeping this tradition alive. The first M's had metal square badges in the corner, like on the old Model F. But then they changed to gray badges, and then going into the 90s, they changed them for these light blue badges. And they also changed the barrel plate from, like, you know, a white cream color, the same color as the case, to a black barrel plate here. But over time, the back plates got thinner and the keyboards got lighter. But they all still came with the most important thing of the keyboard: the switches. So inside the keycap, you can see there's that little post there where the spring rests on, so that it pre-angles it to help the spring buckle. And looking down into here, you can sort of see the spring attached to the flipper, although in this Unicomp it's a bit more visible. It's like the white part on the bottom half. And when you press the key, the spring buckles, I think, this way, and the flipper moves, which actuates the key press. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but these are actually membrane-based keyboards. Yeah, that's right. You could technically call these a mecha membrane, but with using that modern term, that just kind of doesn't feel right with these keyboards. But yes, these are membrane keyboards, and they still have the same 2-key rollover and the other limitations of membranes like oxidation and liquid failure, which, you know, these can be subject to. All of the Model M's featured really nice die-sub PBT keycaps, and a lot of these older M's, like the IBM and older ones, of course it's not going to work, there we go, use these 2-part caps so that you can move things around without affecting the profile, for example. Because the back plate is a curved design, while all of the keycaps are uniprofile, so that, you know, no matter how many keys you move around, it's still a smooth and even profile. The Unicomp caps are still nice, but the font is a little bit different, and some people prefer the older IBM font. But honestly, I kind of prefer the newer font myself. Also, some of the older IBMs can come with double die sub-legends on the numpad. These are like the light brown type. I used to have an M13, but for me, the little track point right here was actually really annoying to me. So, and that thing was in such good condition, I decided to sell that and pick up this Lexmark. And it's got a little bit of different characteristics that are worth mentioning. And now moving on to the back, all the M's came with these flip-out feet. They don't have the biggest effect because these can still slide around, which is why I put some little extra rubber pads on here, and that seems to work quite well. All these older M's had speaker grills, but like, what, I don't know, 1 or 2 part numbers of the M actually came with a speaker, so finding an M with a speaker is actually really rare. But for some reason, they had holes made for all of these for who knows why. For this Unicomp, I actually swapped a rubber dome M case, which is why it says 71G for the part number. And then you can see this one has a normal USB cable, which is nice, you know, to easily use it on a modern computer. But with a lot of these older ones, I had a detachable SDL cable, like here, ridiculously thick. Many of these came with the PS2 connector, but a unique thing about this Lexmark's branded model, it came with a 5-pin plug. I would assume to keep it compatible with a wide range of systems, because these Lexmark branded ones, were sold as an accessory type thing. And take a look at the low serial of this one. 47. And taking a look at the manufacture date of November 6th, I think, because US format, of 1991. This makes it a very early Lexmark, and possibly the 47th one ever made. So yeah, this one's a little bit of a special one here. Also, this Unicomp has a date of, was it late May of 2024 on the original case, so I'll put up a few pictures for that. And taking the cases off, you can see the curved assemblies here. Although, to open one of these, you need a 5.5 millimeter long socket, nut driver. 7/30 seconds also works too, because it has these nice bolts. You can't just open them with any screwdriver. But it's important to look at the inside of these. See, here's an early 90s one with a white barrel plate. And then taking a look at this Unicomp, you can see it has the drainage channels there. Those are implemented on early 90s M's, but later than this one, of course. I don't know if this will be able to pick up on camera. Even the Unicomp's plates are a lot thinner than these. And because of that, these sound a bit more hollow, while these sound a bit more subdued. Okay, so here's a look at the back side of the back plates on the Model M, and this is an important thing to talk about. On this one, you can see there's 4, 5, 6, 7 something rivets missing, and that's because these are like so thin and flimsy, and when they age, they can get brittle and snap off. And then I can show you here, it flexes a little bit, and then when enough of these come off, the barrel plate and the membrane kind of separate, and then keys don't register and start to feel mushy. However, this one is still in decent condition and works. The solution here is to do a bolt mod where you drill holes into the barrel plate, and fill in all these things with either screws or, nuts and bolts. And even with this brand new Unicomp, I have one missing already, mainly because they're a lot flimsier and not as well done as even these older ones. Let's see if I can show it there. They're not like, smooth and even. Because I feel like... Oh, look at that. I just rubbed my finger on that and another one came off. So I think... No, that's two missing. Which I think a side effect of these Unicomps, these rivets are a lot more, I guess, thin. Maybe? I don't know, like... I need to, feel one. I feel like the Unicomp ones might actually feel a little bit thinner than even these IBM made ones. And I wasn't expecting to lose another rivet just now. But, because Unicomp's manufacturing isn't on par with the older ones, I feel like, these could still snap off easier than even these older ones. Because I'm going to show up a picture as well that my M13 had 0 missing rivets, and that was in 1996, made by Lexmark, and that thing was in immaculate shape too. So yes, that's definitely the main downside of these things. But that aside, the Model M's are really built like a tank though, and all the plastics they used do not yellow, although there's a few random ones here and there that did yellow. But for 99% of the M's, you have a PVC plastic case that does not yellow. It's the same color on the inside as well, and PBT keycaps, which also don't yellow, and PBT space bars, which only a few companies did. However, UK M's space bars are ABS for whatever reason. But because of the thick metal backplate and the pretty thick plastic case, they're heavy for modern standards for sure. But the Unicomps are definitely lighter. But these Unicomps are head and shoulders above all the modern MX stuff these days. They're just they crap all over MX. One final important note of these is the key feel. Really smooth with a light tactile bump. Really satisfying and nice to use. And because of this, they're really dust resistant as well, so they hold up well. However, something really interesting when I noticed when I got the Unicomp is actually lighter in key feel than this Lexmark. A very interesting observation that I kind of discovered of. It's not because I have my FXT keycaps on here, because it was like that with the original gray Unicomp caps. But the weighting of this brand new Unicomp Classic is actually very comparable to my Model FXT. I'm not sure if anyone else has had the same observation or not, but I feel like it's worth pointing out. Some people might prefer the lighter key feel of these newer ones than the slightly stiffer feel of these older ones. But, these older ones are still just as good though. Overall, both M's are really good. If you want something modern USB, you can get these with Windows keys. Unlike the 90s models never came with Windows keys until Unicomp took over. You can get the new ones in a USB cable. While all the older ones usually came with PS2, and then, mine's a bit of an enigma here because it's a Lexmark branded one. But these are definitely built better. And if you're really serious about one of these, you're really serious about getting Model M, I would say get an older one, because the quality feels a little bit better. Not to say that these are bad or anything. These have a bit more like modern conveniences. These feature a bit of a tougher build. If you don't mind getting a converter to use these on a computer. But as I stated earlier, the rivets on these Unicomps seem a little bit flimsier than the rivets in these older ones. So if you can find an older one that has little to no missing rivets, this is going to be a better keyboard in the long run, even though these are a good 30 plus years old, while this one is brand new. And I don't think with the flimsy rivets these are going to last as long as these, or the interval of these is going to be shorter when it needs a bolt mod compared to these older ones. I didn't want to get into every single detail about these, but I wanted to give the most important details of these Model M's, because there's so much about these things. They made them in the millions with a million different variants, but I just wanted to cover what I have and all the key differences. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you all for watching. I know this was long because it's a Model M. And we'll see you all in the next one.